billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa khatabin nabiyyin sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa shafi'ina bil qasim Muhammad. Summa salatu wassalamu ala alihi tayyibin tahirin al mazlumin al masumin siyama ala ghalib kulli ghalib Ali ibn Abi Talib wa ala Sayyid Nisa'il Ahl Jannah Fatimah az-Zahra wa ala bintiha Sayyid Zainab Kulsum wa ala Ruqayya wa Rabab wa Layla wa Farwa wa Fizzata Jami' Shuhada wal Usara. Amma ba'd, faqad qala Allah Ta'ala wa tabaraka fi kitabil mubin wa huwa asdaqul qailin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nafs mutmainnata rajai ila rabbika radiyatan mardiya. Brothers and sisters of Islam, my audience, my Sameen, today is that inevitable day of Ashura that we have gathered today in the remembrance of those who gave their lives with one purpose: to fulfill the promise made to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that whatever the cost is, we will save, O Allah's Habib, the deen, the religion, Islam, the book and the Sharia. For anything and everything which is of exalted position and price, there is something to protect. If we look at the kings and queens who have their precious jewels and diamonds, they have guards to protect them. The great religion of Islam, the great tiresome work done by his Rasul, our great Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah made sure that there are people to protect it. And He gave this role to the Ahl al-Bad. And amongst them it is Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah, the grandson of the Prophet, Hazrat Imam HUSSAIN Islam, fulfilled that role immaculately to the last dot, to the spirit of the promise in field of Karbala. Today, on this day of Ashura, I have a Christian brother here who has spent his time and life in the research of Allah's great book, His Prophet, and in particular the role of the Ahl al-Bad. And he knows the great position and esteem we Shi'an Ahl al-Bad hold Imam HUSSAIN al-Islam. We will discuss with our brother Chris Wade here and ponder upon the tragedy of Karbala, a tragedy like of which never was one before and never will be another. Chris, this tragedy of Karbala is to show that death is inevitable in this present day and age, the very day we are doing this program, in the different parts of the world, and especially the Muslim world, toll of life, death is taking place. Some are using weapons to kill each other. Muslims pitched against Muslims. Some are using gelonite or various powders, strapping themselves with dynamite and blowing themselves so that they will blow many other lives out. If that is so, have we lost to know the real value of death, and the value of death especially the Shuhada of Karbala gave us to remember.
On a day like today, when we remember the most precious gift of martyrdom, this is not a day in which we can allow it to be played falsely by people who would claim the title of martyr whilst doing atrocious things. We need to distinguish clearly between those who are standing in the course of truth and justice and uprightness before God, and because of their stand, others take their lives. This is martyrdom. Those who use their bodies as a means to carry death to others, including themselves, this is indiscriminate killing. We must be very clear on the difference between them. We must be very mindful of the verse of the Quran that tells us that we are forbidden to take our own lives. Our lives are the property of God. They are a precious gift. We are not to usurp the position of God, to take that position of determining our own death. These two things, indiscriminate killing of others and the deliberate killing of ourselves, make such acts as you describe with suicide belts and so forth unacceptable in the way of Islam. Martyrdom, however, has always been honored as one of the most precious gifts that God can ever give to any human being. It is also one of the greatest tests that God can ever place before a human being, because it is an ultimate test of our submission of everything before the throne of God, with total trust and surrender. If you call this forth from me, you will find in me an obedient servant. I will not surrender to the tyrant. I will not call what is false true. I will not give allegiance to someone who has no right to it. I will not betray the cause of God, no matter what, including my own death. This is what we remember today, and this is the most precious gift, not of death, but of life and hope to the community of humankind.
The death is inevitable. Death will come to everyone. We are here today to honor those who said, Labbaik, welcome to death with brave hearts, mind and souls, with a smile on their lips, with no fear and no hindrance in whatsoever, to embrace death, that which sends fear and shudder to our shoulders, was welcomed by the Shuhada of Karbala. In this, as we speak, from the shores of Morocco to the islands of Indonesia, to the burning lands of the Middle East, to the region of Pakistan or Afghanistan, the Muslim world is burning. Muslims pitched against Muslims. And in Karbala, there were two groups of people, one very large in number, one very small in number, both claiming to say that the Prophet of God, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallam, is my Rasul, both saying Quran is our gospel, our holy book, and both ready to say their prayers or salat on time. Yet one is the zalim and the other is the Mazlum. One is the one who is the tyrant and one on whom tyranny is being leashed on men, women and children. With such a field that both of them claiming to be right, both of them saying we are the true Muslims, and we 1400 years later are watching this scene in Karbala, and each one of us freely, truly, independently have to make up our mind and decide for ourselves that there are two camps, both coming and claiming to be on the right path. How do we decide to make our mind that who is right and who is wrong?
God has given us certain guidance. The guidance is through the Quran, through the teaching of the Prophet, and through the ongoing tradition of those that God has appointed to lead and guide the community. In this way, we can make solid judgment based on solid evidence. Therefore, we are able to judge people by their actions. God alone can judge people by their intentions. That is not for us to do. But if we see continuity from Quran through the Prophet to the actions of the human being, if we see integrity of action, trusting God, fearlessness, if we see piety in thought and word and deed, then we can see that here is the community with whom we wish to stand. We wish to stand with the community of righteousness and keep away from those who are misguided and who would shed blood upon the earth.
Our brother here, our very good, noble and righteous Christian brother here is pointing out, it is not difficult for us to make up our mind who is right, who is wrong, who is honorable, who is dishonorable, who is a tyrant and on whom tyranny is being leashed. We see on the field of Karbala, an whole army has surrounded a river and allowing the animals, the birds, the insects, everybody to have a drink from that water. Water, a resource from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Water, river that flows from the valleys inhabited by the poor, or to the fields and gardens inhabited by the rich, equally for all of them. Yet on the field of Karbala, water, the river is surrounded by the army. Animals can drink, birds can drink, but the household of the Prophet and his companions for the 3 days are deprived of water and food. As Chris says, it's not difficult for us to make up our mind. We know that our duty is on one side. Befriend and be kind, be supportive, and give all our help in whatever means we can to the people who are suffering in such an enormous way that the basic right of having a drink of water on a hot day like this, not a day but 3 days, not just for the men but even baby who are infant in their rights. It is not difficult to see. But let me ask Chris, as an outsider, how does he see that both are reciting the same holy book, both are reciting the same, reading the same Quran and Hadith, both are claiming and shouting at the time of Takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allah is great. Both are saying, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Muhammad is his great prophet. And yet both are saying that, and yet when on the day of Ashura, Imam HUSSAIN right, wants to perform his prayers, right, the others are wanting to perform their prayers, and they are both praying to the same Allah, to the same Creator, right? How is it? How should we judge their prayers? By the very act, because the words of the prayers are exactly the same. Yet we have to make our mind whose prayers we support, whose recitation we support, whose act of worship we support, whose act of worship and worship of Allah we would like to adapt and adopt in our own lives.
Let us be clear, first of all, that we're looking at a date not even 50 years after the death of the Prophet.
That's right.
By anybody's judgment, something very seriously wrong has entered into the Muslim community. Because, as you say, there are people here who are claiming to be Muslims, who are offering their salah, who are about to kill in the most brutal way the grandson of the Prophet. Now, clearly something has gone horribly wrong. Secondly, it is not an unusual phenomena in the history of humankind that two opposing groups who are about to do battle call upon God, who call upon God as though they own God, as though I can tell God that I am about to do a godly act. This is, of course, nonsense. A godly act is one in obedience to God. How could we possibly say that an act that is going to massacre the grandson of the Prophet and his companions in this brutal way is an act in obedience to God. So by these outer forms, we can come to some assessment of the acts. We do not know the heart of every one of those who was forced into being a member of the Umayyad army on this day. We have no right, therefore, to condemn each and every one. We do, however, know the intention of some of those who led this army, because it is declared. So, again, we are able as human beings only to come to an assessment based on external acts and external speech. So through declaration and through acts we can say, can this possibly be in accordance with the way of Islam? And in this way we are able to see here in one camp we have those who are prepared to give their all in obedience to the divine command. Surely that is the group with whom we should all want to stand.
That is the group which demands our support, which needs our support, to whom Allah wills our support. It is now months before this little qafila, this group of people left Medina. Medina, their land, their home, they said al-wada and salam to his grandfather. He went to the grave of his mother, Fatima Zahra Salamullah, and gave her the last salam, saying, O mother, you who raised me by grinding corn by your own hand, O mother, accept my salam, for HUSSAIN will never return again. Now that inevitable day has come. Day has come when HUSSAIN has to fulfill his promise, his pledge made to his grandfather, to his father, to his mother, and to his elder brother. He knows what duty lies. Every moment, every second, every breath on the field of Karbala is the breath of ultimate prayer, ultimate worship, ultimate sacrifice, ultimate gifts on the field of Karbala to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we all cherish today. Chris, if, as Yazid had thought and his army had thought, there are only 72. They are in the wilderness. Nobody around, no historian, no pen, no paper, nothing here to record. We can easily do away with the 72 in no time, and ultimate and victory can easily be ours. Those who thought that hundreds and thousands can wipe out the 72 and declare victory, how hollow was their wish, how hollow was their plan that they thought victory was there will be there. How and in what way Allah gave victory? God gave victory to those who in his adalat, in his justice, scale of justice, Allah gave victory to those who really deserved victory in the eyes of God Almighty.
Victory is not something which is determined by force of numbers. It may be that on the day we can see that there's a massacre and that appears to be a victory, But victory is something longer lasting. Victory is something that endures throughout the human centuries. We can imagine, we spoke about two groups at prayer.
Yes.
We can imagine Imam Hussein making his Zuhr prayer
That's right.
in the open as an act not only of devotion and obedience to God, but as an act of defiance to injustice.
Certainly.
You see, we must remember the hadith of the Prophet, in which he says, the greatest jihad is to speak the word of truth into the face of a tyrant.
Most certainly.
Here is not only the word of truth, it is the action of truth in the face of the army of the tyrant. And so a godly act like this, filled with all the spiritual power of one of the highest spiritual excellence. You see, our worship is, in a sense, it's colored by the purity of our heart and of our intention. And so the worship of one of the highest spiritual excellence, as it were, cries out to God in a more dynamic, in a louder voice, because of the one who prays in this way. And so the whole gesture of praying in the face of the enemy is not only an act of worship of God, but it is an act that proclaims the victory which has already come about because of the uprightness of that small community.
Victory is certain and destined, as our brother Chris points out. Let me say, the victory did not come easy. Victory did come, and victory was written for time immemorial, forever to come, by the Shuhada of Karbala, not by pen on paper, but by their very bloods on the sands of Karbala. And Karbala, it is the witness of that document that Imam Hussain and Shuhada Karbala signed on the sands of Karbala with their own blood. The blood of Shuhada, the blood of martyrs. To tell the world that yes, Azan, Takbir was being said on both sides. Imam Hussain alayhi salam could, as Chris points out very vividly, said his prayers on the sands of Karbala. Yes, Imam could have said it in the safety inside the tent. He said, no, let the world know that Imam is going to say the prayers in front of everybody, especially the army who has come to kill him, right? That they must know that they should have no excuse later on to say, oh, I did not know against whom the battle was and who the victim was. That they must know, and the world should know, that they came with full intention for this massacre, and they knew who was being killed, who was being made shaheed, and how. And there, as Chris pointed out so vividly, Imam Hussain Islam lays his prayer mat to say his Zuhr and Zuhrain prayers, his Asr prayer. And two of his companions say, oh my Aqa, My master, you say your prayers, we stand in front of you. Such are the companions of Imam Hussain. The time of today demands from us, if we say we love you, Imam Hussain, then we should be like the companions of Imam Hussain, who stood in front of the prayer mat of Imam Hussain, that when the arrows flew in the direction to protect the Imam, those two companions took the arrows on their chest and drank the cup of Shahada and laid their lives. Even today, as we speak, the Rawza of Janab Zainab Salamullah is under attack. The Rawza of little Sukaina, little Sakina, as Ruqayya, or this is Sakina as we know, in Sham is under attack. We know that the wretched rulers of Saudi Arabia have bulldozed the very grave of the daughter of our great Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The world, the time demand from us the believers to make our lives give the sacrifice as the two companions did on the day of Ashura before the mats of Hazrat Imam Hussain. There, I said, the demand will always be there to protect the righteousness, to stand up for truth and not be afraid, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give ultimate victory to those who are the righteous one, whether it is in Islam or Christianity or Judaism, whether we learn it from the lives of Moses, Abraham or Jesus or our Prophet. Is it not the same in all the texts that righteousness will be the one that ultimately Allah will give victory to?
God is the master. God is the one who decides. God is the one who gives faith. God is the one who makes demands. It is not for us to tell God how God should conduct God's relationship with humankind. Therefore, God can call human beings into an act of faith and obedience, even an act of total surrender. And so, in all our great traditions, the martyr is one who is given particular honor. We say that we are washed by the martyr's blood, because the blood is the very life force, and the blood that is spilt upon the ground, as it were, cries out to heaven. This is the ultimate act of surrender in all our great traditions before the one and only God. We can only look with awe and with the deepest humility when we look at the act of such devotion that we see in the martyrdom, true martyrdom, of any human being before God, because that is the complete sajda, the complete prostration before the mighty throne of God.
The field of Karbala. It is a scene, a picture no human hand can put on canvas. It is something that our soul, our hearts, our mind can perhaps be able to capture a few moments here and there. I cannot tell you how the women and children in the camps, what thoughts are going in their minds. I cannot tell you the thoughts, the minds of the Suhaba, the companions of Imam Hussain might be going in their minds. I cannot tell you the thoughts and the words being uttered by Sayyid Sajjad, the Imam Zainul Abidin al-Islam, on his bed where he's suffering with illness. I cannot tell you, even the slave John of Imam Hussain Islam, what would be going through his mind and heart. It is easy for me to say these words, but I will never be able to see with their eyes, feel with their hearts, as they were live and going through those pains on the day of Ashura on the field of Karbala. Can you imagine what would be the fate of little Sakina who is thirsty for 3 days? What she must be thinking, what will happen without her father or without her uncle? The women folk not knowing how will the enemies treat them after Ashura. What do you think we as Muslims and you and I and others who believe in human justice, human rights and wrongs in many ways, what is our duty towards ours to keep this history, to keep this episode in history alive in every form that we can.
Keeping alive and commemorating the martyrdom of Karbala is not a question of coming to Majlis during these days. That is only part of it. It is building within ourselves that strength and courage, that faith and devotion, that we too are willing to take a stand for justice, to protect the innocent, to defend truth, to oppose tyranny in our own world. This may come in some great dramatic way, as it did on the field of Karbala. It may come in some small way. Someone in the workplace is unjustly accused, and we go to their defense. Someone we see is being spoken to badly in the street, and we go to stand beside them to give them support in this time. Someone is thirsty, someone is hungry, someone is suffering want and need in the world. This is also the spirit of Karbala. Those who are grieving for the loss of their loved ones, and we go to their support both physically and emotionally and spiritually, this is also keeping alive the spirit of Karbala. And in this way, we are seeking out the opportunities in small ways to prepare ourselves, if necessary, if God so wills, for that greater test that may come. But this day is kept alive in every day, in every small way, not just in a one-off annual commemoration.
And a poet wrote that this martyrdom of Karbala makes sure that Hussain does not just belong to those who call themselves Shah-e-Ahl-e-Bayt, but the poet says Hussain is for everyone. HUSSAIN is for every country, every race, and people of every religion or faith. For HUSSAIN did not come to fight this battle to regain the throne or the power of the Islamic world then. HUSSAIN did not come to take prestige for himself. HUSSAIN did not come for the grandeur and the treasures and the coffers that filled the kingdom of the Muslims then. HUSSAIN said when he left Makkah after not incompleting his Hajj, that I go forward for one purpose, Amal bil Ma'ruf, Nahi anil Munkar. I come forward, I go forward, I march forward for one thing, in the pursuit of truth and in the list of honor, dignity and rights, to protect the truth, to defend the truth. HUSSAIN comes to Karbala, and in the field of Karbala, on the day of Ashura, HUSSAIN's come forwards when he has seen that all the beloved ones have given their act of sacrifices to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He comes to the Khemagah, or the place where the tents of the Ahl Bayt and his followers are. And he says at the doorstep of the tent, my salam to those who remain here in this camp. And he says, this is my last salam to you, O my sister Zainab Kulsum, and to all those, Farwa, Layla, and even to my mother's Kaniz, my servant, my mother, he calls her, my mother Fizza. Take the last salam of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He speaks to the little children and says to little Sakina, O Sakina, O Sakina, who would not sleep any night without lying on the chest of her father, Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Sakina, my beloved daughter, my salam to you. And once he has said the salam, the little children catch his cloak, his abba, they cling to his feet, and the women folk, they surround him from all round, and they have got tears in their eyes, as if to say, Hussain, after you go away, what will happen to us? What will be our fate? How will the enemy treat us? And this way they will begin to weep. But Hussain says to each one of them, say, oh, my sister Zainab Kulsum, when our mother died and passed away, when she drank the cup of Shahada, you had sabr. You bore that burden so amicably well. Oh, my sisters, oh, my women folk, when the enemy came and struck our Baba, our father, Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam, in the mosque of Kufa, you bore that pain so well. Oh, my sisters, oh, my friends, when our brother, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba Islam, was poisoned, that he spit blood and flesh from his mouth, you bore his death, his shahada, so amicably. May Allah protect you. Then he leaves the tent, but he returns. He says, I have from my sisters, you a few wishes. A few wishes. Remember, when a dying man wishes something, the listener gives them full ear. He says, my sisters, right? Look after the living Imam, my son, SYED. Protect him. And he says that don't do one thing. Don't pray and ask for the Allah's curse on those Muslims who are doing this horrible act. No, don't curse the ummah of my grandfather. No, have patience, bear the burden, bear the pains, but never curse them. And he goes out, and he looks right, and he looks left. It's an empty surrounding. And he calls out into the witnessness, "Oh, my companions, are you there to help me?" There is a silence. An eerie silence fills the land of Karbala. He calls out, "Oh, my son Ali Akbar, are you going to help your father mount the ride?" There is an eerie silence. He says, "Oh, my brother Abbas, my Alam Bardar, the bearer of the parcham, the flag, the nishan of Islam, are you there to help me?" Then perhaps the very corpses of the martyrs that lie on the field of Karbala must have been shaking there on the ground and say, "Oh Hussain, if only Allah gives us the strength, we would rise once again and once again sacrifice our lives to protect your life. You are the candle, the shama, the light of Islam." With those words, Imam Hussain marches in front of the enemy's army. He says, Oh, those people, can you not see that I have the amama of Rasul on my head? Can you not see that I have the aba of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Can you not see that I am using the horse that I ride, Zuljana, belongs to the Prophet? Why do you want to kill me? And there is an eerie silence. All the soldiers put their head down in shame and they listen to him. With those words, he says, "You have no answer. Let me give you the answer." Then Imam Hussain al-Islam takes his sword out and marches toward the enemy. And with the sword of Imam Hussain goes through the heads of the enemy by one, and they retreat. And he goes on till from the sky the sound comes, "Oh nafs mutmainna, oh nafs mutmainna, Rajai, leave it. I know what your faith and belief is. Put the sword back into this bag. Come to me, come to my presence." When he hears the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he says, if that is your marzi of Allah, the wish of Allah, then Hussain will bow down to it. Hussain puts his sword away. Now just imagine the grandson of Rasul Khuda is on his horse in the middle, and the enemies from all round begin to close in. They are slowly closing in. In the middle is Imam Hussain al-Islam on his stallion, on his horse there. Then they begin to close in further. Everyone who had bows and arrows shoot their arrow at him. Everyone who has a spear threw their aimed and threw their spears at him. And those who had their swords in their arms, they come marching towards him. And it is said that there wasn't a little area on his body which was not inflicted by the arrows and the spears of the enemy. And it is said on the little mount called TALIB, his sister stood there pleading, "Oh Mrasad, what are you doing to my brother Hussain? Do you not know? He is the beloved one of the Prophet. Oh Mrasad, even the Prophet wouldn't let Hussain dismount from his shoulder even while at prayer. Leave him. What has he done to you?" And they learned, listen. Then Zainab looks towards Kufa and said, "Oh my father Ali, Baba, come to the rescue of my brother." But the sound rings in that wilderness, and the Shimr Mal'oon holds the head of Abu Abdullah, and with his sword he separates the head from his body. The earth begins to tremble. There is a tremble on the earth, and the sky begins to rain with blood. The sky is dark. There is everybody. The calamity of Karbala takes place. An qatalat al-Hussain wa ashabihi rings out. Oh, the world knows that Imam Hussain alayhi salam has been assassinated and martyred and made shaheed. Then Zainab comes running to Zain al-Abidin. Sayyid Sajjad shakes his shoulder and says, "Oh, the Imam of my time, see what is happening." He says, "Oh auntie, can you move the curtain of the tent?" She does that. And Sayyid Sajjad looks and says, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun." Oh my aunt, I have been made yatim. I have been made orphan. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. And then the inevitable happens. All the children, all the women gather and say, "Wa Hussaina, Wa Hussaina, Wa Hussaina."